If you've ever lived in an old house, you're used to the settling, the groans, the radiator clicks, the occasional thud from the attic. You tell yourself it's just the wood expanding. But for a guy named Julian, a freelance sound engineer who had just moved into a secluded fixer-upper in rural Maine, those sounds weren't just house noises. They were deliberate. Julian was the kind of guy who lived through his ears. He could tell the difference between a bird hitting a window and a person tapping on it from 3 rooms away. So, when he started hearing a rhythmic thump drag coming from the crawl space beneath his bedroom at exactly 3:14 a.m., every single night he didn't call a contractor. He did what any tech-savvy guy would do. He set up high-sensitivity shotgun microphones throughout the house, thinking he had a localized pest problem. But when he sat down the next morning to review the audio, his blood went cold. It wasn't an animal. Through the headphones, he heard the distinct sound of a heavy zipper opening, followed by a wet, raspy breath right against the microphone casing, and then a voice thin, gravelly, and sounding like it hadn't been used in decades, whispered his own social security number, digit by digit, followed by the sound of a sharp blade being stropped against leather. This wasn't a haunting. This was someone or something that had been studying him before he'd even signed the deed. Julian spent the next few hours in a state of paralyzed hyperfocus, scrolling through the waveforms on his laptop. He noticed something even more disturbing. There was a subsonic frequency buried under the audio, a low-end hum that was vibrating at exactly 19 Tex Hz. In the world of acoustics, this is known as the ghost frequency. It's a pitch just below the range of human hearing that is known to trigger feelings of intense dread, cold flashes, and even hallucinations. But Julian wasn't hallucinating the physical damage to his house. When he went into the basement to find the source of the hum, he found a small, hidden door behind a stack of rotted insulation. It wasn't a room. It was a tunnel, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through, lined entirely with old, yellowed Polaroids of people sleeping. As he crawled further, his flashlight beam hit a small alcove. There, sitting on a milk crate, was a vintage shortwave radio transmitter still warm to the touch. It was broadcasting a live feed of Julian's own breathing. He realized then that the house wasn't just a home. It was a giant, hollowed-out recording studio designed to drive a person into a state of total psychological collapse. The thump-drag he heard every night, that was the sound of the occupant moving the transmitter closer to his bed, inch by inch through the hollow voids in the walls. The climax happened on a Tuesday, during a massive thunderstorm that knocked out the power. Julian was sitting in the dark, clutching a heavy mag light, when his battery-powered monitor suddenly flared to life. No power, yet the screen was glowing. A video file began to play. It was a live feed from the camera he'd hidden in the kitchen. In the grainy infrared, he saw himself standing at the kitchen island. But the Julian on the screen was moving with jerky, unnatural movements like a marionette on invisible strings. The figure on the screen slowly turned toward the camera, and Julian saw that the man had no eyes, just 2 dark weeping holes. The figure pointed toward the ceiling. Julian slowly looked up, and there, wedged into the corner where the wall met the ceiling, was a person. They were dressed in a suit made of duct tape and human hair, their limbs elongated and snapped at impossible angles to fit into the architecture. The wall man didn't scream. He just opened his mouth and emitted that 19 Tex G hum. But this time it was so loud Julian's ears began to bleed. He bolted for the door, not stopping until he reached the highway, leaving everything he owned behind. When the police searched the house the next day, they found the tunnel, the Polaroids, and the radio. But they also found a second set of dental records in the basement that matched Julian's perfectly. The house didn't just have an intruder. It was growing a replacement.